Alright, in this video we're going to show how to lift our 2019 Coachman Clipper pop-up camper. We got this camper, nice little camper, because it could still fit in the garage and we could actually still pull a car in here. But the problem is we got these small wheels on here and we spend a lot of time on the off-road or boondocking, and I'm a little concerned about the clearance. So we're going to add clearance by putting this lift. We're going to show you how to do that. So right here we're measuring at 23.5 inches, and at the front here we are at about 16 inches, and in the back here we're at 13.5 inches. So we're going to put a lift on this and see what we can do. So to do our lift, we're going to use the Dexter axle conversion kit. And we just got this right off of Amazon. You'll just want to check the part number to make sure it measures your axle height. And what we're actually going to do is the springs rest under the axle, and this kit allows us to take those springs out and then put them on top of the axle, thereby getting maybe 4 or 5 inches worth of lift. We'll show that a little bit better once we remove the tire. So the first thing we need to do is remove the tire. And we're going to loosen up those nuts while the tire is still on the floor before we raise the camper. So we're under the camper now. We got it jacked up, and basically what we're doing, this conversion kit is going to allow us to take the springs right here that are right now, here's the axle, and the springs are below the axle, and the kit's basically going to flip this over so we can mount these springs on top of the axle here, giving us more clearance. Some people just do a cheap axle flip where they take this and flip it, but if you see there's a bend there in the axle, that's there for a reason, and we don't want to mess with that. So don't do a axle flip, do a lift with the conversion kit. So we'll get a better look at what comes with the kit here in a second. So to do our lift on our pop-up camper, we're using the Dexter axle conversion kit. Got this off of Amazon, cost about 50 bucks. What was great about this is Dexter is actually the brand who actually made the axle on our pop-up camper. And what you're going to do, this is the most important piece that we get right here. This piece right here is going to go on top of the axle, and then the springs are going to sit on top of that. And then these guys go, this pieces go on top of the spring, and then we have the U-bolt. So let's get this thing installed and see what we could do to increase the height of our pop-up camper. So we took our tire removed, and there's the springs. And so what we need to do, we need to remove this guy right here, because we're gonna take the axle off. In order to do that, we're gonna have to take this spring off to drop that, and then we're gonna lower the axle, and then reattach the springs, and then attach the springs on top of the axle. So we need to remove these bolts here to get the axle loosened, and then we'll have to remove this guy right here to drop the springs and get the axle out so we can mount our other caliber on top of it. So we got the axle off, and what we had to do is we had to remove these bolts right up in here. And this is a pretty new camper. In fact, it's brand new. And one bolt came off really easy and one bolt came off really hard. Doing some research, they did say, you see these little grooves here? So on this end here, you're not supposed to be turning that. So make sure you just turn the actual nut. So what we're going to do now is we're going to reinstall the spring back up there, and then we got our little adapter piece, and it's going to go right on top right here, and I'm going to have a buddy come over there and weld that down. One thing they say is this thing, the top needs to be parallel to this bottom right here, so we're going to have to lower it using the adjusters, get nice and parallel, and then weld it back here, and then the spring will rest right on top of that. Oh yeah, one thing we did do is we did spray with some blaster or maybe WD-40, spray around these bolts here and let them sit for a while, because like I said, our unit, our camper is brand new, and one came off really easy and one came off really hard. So we welded the bracket onto the axle. When we did this, you just got to make sure that the new bracket above is parallel with the one, and then you balance it by turning these little knobs here. Once we made sure this was, once we got the first bracket on, what we did was we made a level here, made sure we leveled that, and then before we welded the second bracket on, down on the other side, we leveled this right here, and then when we put the level on the new bracket, still made sure we aligned the sides up and the spacings were parallel with the old bracket, but then we put the little level on top of the second bracket and made sure that was level before we welded the second one on. So now what we need to do is we just need to put some paint over this to avoid rusting of the area, and then we'll reattach it onto the springs. So on our camper here, we have some brake wires, and we had enough slack in our brake wires that we were able to leave them attached. But if you don't have the slack, you might have to cut these and then reattach them. So the bracket's all painted, and now we're just going to raise the axle up so that bottom bolt fits right in that little hole right there. So now we have the rest of our kit. We're just going to take this top bracket, put it through the hole on the top there, and then we're going to take our bolts from the axle here and bring them up here. So I got the axle back up, lined up with the spring, and I'm going to add the U-bolts here. But one thing I noticed, this is actually the bolt that came with the kit, and this is the bolt that came off of my axle. You see mine's a little bit smaller. Same thing with this one here. So I'm not sure if I ordered the wrong part or it's just big, but since this is a brand new trailer, I'm just going to go ahead and attach the ones that came with it and not use the ones that came with the kit, since we're already nice and welded down in there. So what we're going to do is just take our top piece, line it up with the bolt right there, and then we're going to come down through here under the axle and then attach our U-bolts. Okay, here's our finished, well, not quite finished, because we are going to swap out the tires still. But I wanted to do a measurement with the same tires to show how much lift we got on the camper. So when we first did our first measurement here, we were at 23.5, and now we're at 29. So we got a 6-inch lift right there. This is with the same small tires, and we're going to swap these out for some bigger tires. Awesome. Alright, so there is our finished project. When we first measured this distance down here, we were at 23.5, and now we are at 31, or about 30.5. So that's a pretty good lift. We went from the small wheels, right there. That's That's the difference with the wheel. And we have about 10.5 inches clearance underneath the axle. So I feel a lot better about going on the trails now. So our project is done. We got the new tires on, our axle flip. It's really not an axle flip because we really didn't flip this axle. But if you look at it now, we are at about 11 inches, 10.5 inches to here clearance. And the axle here used to sit on top of these. So we had to get this part. We put this part on, had it welded, attached. And let's show you what the outside looks like. Alright, project's done. We got the new tires on. Everything's lifted, looking really good. So the only other thing we need to do is replace the spare. Because we don't want to get stuck with one of those little tires. And I'm going to get 2 spares. Because 2 is 1 and 1 is none, right? So, I hope that helps. Lifted pop-up camper. And I'm a little concerned about the clearance. So we're going to add clearance by pruning this wood. Get stuck with one of those little tires, and I'm going to get 2 spares because 2 is 1 and 1 is none, right?